Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 18 of the Regeneration Advent Calendar. Yes, we're covering one of the David Tennant regenerations.
Yes, we are. Not the Stolen Earth, though. We've sort of skipped that one on this list
And
because,
Dalek Universe. you know?
yeah, you got that as well. And then, of course, whatever comes after Power of the Doctor
Yeah.
up next, yeah, because, we don't quite, we can't see that far into the future, sadly.
I
We only
mean,
have,
maybe once it's done, we can add it to this playlist.
yeah, well, I'm sure we'll talk
Yeah.
to no end about those three specials when the time comes, won't we?
Oh, yes.
But yeah, for today, it is the end of time. And for us today, it is the 1st of December. We are recording this not long after the 10th planet just went live, aren't we?
Yeah. Hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're enjoying the series so far. And
Uh,
again, leave likes. Helps us out. We like it.
yeah, we like to see the support on this because, as we've mentioned before, it's a big project. It's been a while in the making, and it's nice now recording this one to know that it's finally properly begun for everyone else, not just for us. It's
Yeah.
not our little secret anymore.
No, because it's been hard keeping it stum for a long time.
Mm. We know now. Well, we don't quite know how a lot of people working on Doctor Who feel because they also have to they also have to sign NDAs and stuff, don't they?
I mean,
So
you did have
it
to
gets a
sign a
bit
few
more.
forms. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you sent
make
them
it.
over in the post to me.
Yeah,
The Pertwee Smith 11 channel has a lot of clamp down on such things.
yeah.
There's work going into the future of this channel that I cannot dare mention at the moment.
Yeah, you think Chibnall's bad?
Wait until you see what we've got planned.
Oh yeah, right. End of time. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to talk about with the end of the Russell era,
Mm.
because this is the era of the show what we both grew up on. So I guess there's an element of nostalgia.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
an end of time. I guess the Stolen Earth feels like everything's full circle of Russell, and I think End of Time is like a nice little epilogue, really, of the RTD era one.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, it was first announced that these specials would be happening in January 2008, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When David Tennant announced that he was departing the show and said, you still got Series 4 to come. I'm not going quite at the end of that. You then got the fake out with Stolen Earth. You then got another fake out with The Next Doctor as the title
Mm.
of the first Christmas special. Uh, but, that ended up being something a little bit different. Matt Smith was then revealed after that in the next January, 2009. And then finally, in January 2010, on the 1st of the month, David Tennant actually did the regeneration. So we knew this was coming for a long time back then, didn't we?
Yeah.
Sort of probably the longest time between Doctor announcing departure and Doctor actually departing.
It's interesting because obviously we were a lot younger then, and time passes so slowly when you're younger. So it felt
Mm,
like an eternity, and David Tennant felt like he'd just been the Doctor forever at this point. So it was really
yeah.
exciting that there was this new Doctor on the horizon. Like Matt Smith, relatively an unknown actor. It was a tantalizing thought of, oh my gosh, this is a big change. Russell was leaving, Stephen Moffat was coming in. Yeah,
Mm,
it was a big shift in the show was on the horizon. But we're
yeah.
not
I
there
mean,
yet. That's tomorrow.
no, not quite yet. But yeah, certainly there were some thoughts at the time, wasn't there, of should we just cancel the show from the BBC? Because they were
Mm.
like, everyone's going. David Tennant is very popular. Is it worth keeping it on? And thankfully, they decided to keep going with it. I think there was also some thoughts about should we call it Series 1 next
Yeah.
time? But no, they stuck with Series 5. I think that was Moffat putting his foot down, wasn't it, there to say,
Mhm.
call it Series 5. Uh, but yeah, but now, lo and behold, all these years later, the gang's getting back together. We've got Julie Gardner coming back, Russell T Davies, of course, coming back, David Tennant, Catherine Tate.
Bernard
They're all,
Cribbins.
yeah, they're all coming back for one last hurrah. Well, for one last hurrah for some of them. For others, they're sticking at it for the long run with Ncuti Gatwa as
Mm.
the 15th Doctor, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny thinking back all this time ago. about how different the world was, I guess, back then. How different TV was as well, because certainly
Yeah.
Doctor Who is in a different place now and looks to be getting an even bigger budget behind it to boost it forward. It hadn't quite made it big in America yet, had it? The new
No,
series.
Matt Smith very much did that. I think 2009 was the first San Diego Comic Con Doctor Who attended.
Mm.
And then I think when you get to Series 5, you can see them starting to shift. And then Series 6, there's a big push with like the American iconography of that two-parter.
Yeah, I mean, it was a co-production, wasn't it, with BBC America?
Yeah, and obviously
all out.
splitting the series is very much an American thing. So,
I mean, not that lasted too long, thankfully.
No.
They sort of decided that wasn't the best approach to take with it. And then return to normal proceedings for the Capaldi era. But yeah, end of time now. I mean, do you want to talk about how this idea of a regeneration for David Tennant first started off in Russell T Davies's head?
yeah, the idea was very much like this little spaceship with a family, and I think it was about a very Night of the Doctor. I think it was about to crash, and he was going to save the family and sacrifice himself to save the family. Which you get elements of in End of Time, and it feels totally Doctor.
Yeah, it's sort of it's very much hitting those same emotional beats, isn't it?
Yeah,
That they were planning to go for, but just shifted into a different story and everything made much more epic around it. But I think it's nice that for this Doctor's arc, Russell had that all in mind, the Time Lord Victorious stuff.
Shall we talk about the 10th Doctor's arc? Because I don't think we've talked about David Tennant a little bit in Christmas Invasion, but we've not talked about his character arc and journey he went on.
Yeah, let's have a couple of thoughts on that then.
Because I think the reason people dislike End of Time is the wimpy, whiny nature of Tennant, or the 10th Doctor to say. And that's the whole point of his Doctor. He's a vanity Doctor. He's got an ego.
You get it right towards the start there in Tooth and Claw. Part of the reason he was banished, him and Rose were banished by Queen Victoria, was because of how much fun they were having fighting the werewolf while everyone was tying around them. I think it is nice seeing that come full circle in this story, and that idea that he discusses with Wilf about him, he needs someone with him to keep him on the right path.
Well, you get that in like the Runaway Bride, and you can just see that there are elements of the Time Lord Victorious straight away in like that Christmas episode when he's just letting the Rachnos children drown and just
until Donna cuts in with Doctor, you can stop now. Because we've seen that in Turn Left, without Donna saying, Doctor, you can stop now, he will just stand there staring dramatically until he drowns.
But he does it so well.
He does. Brilliant stuff there. Just that glare as the water's dripping down his spiky hair.
As he's a man of no second chances.
No.
I mean, did he give the family of blood a second chance by, keeping them alive and imprisoning Daughter of Mine? Like, it feels like a second chance in a way.
It's a second chance to live, but it's not necessarily a second. I mean, it's sort of said that it's a crueler fate, isn't it, really, that he allowed them to live, because he allowed them to be in more pain, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. Lee, it's a lot of it spread throughout, isn't it? And
It really
I think
is.
ever since then we've had attempts to do similar things, like with the Am I a Good Man arc from the 12th Doctor, but I don't think any of them quite got it as well as the 10th Doctor's arc. Maybe some of what they did with 11, with his more darker nature in stories like The Girl Who Waited.
Yeah.
I think they got it right. But as an overall arc for the whole era of that Doctor, I think this is where they had it. And this is also where they have the Doctor at feeling the most consistent as a character. It feels like when the 10th Doctor does change, there's story reason there for it. Whereas when the 12th Doctor changes, it feels more of a response to fans and the audience.
Yeah.
But yeah, what were you going to say? Sorry, I sort of cut you off.
No, I think with Tennant's the 10th Doctor's arc, it's very under the radar, really. Like
Hmm.
it's not obvious, it's not beating you over the head with it. It's just there in the background, and like you say, stories bring it out, and then it goes back into hiding. Then it comes full circle. Um, in this with like the four knocks, and
Yeah.
just wanting to have fun, and the line "I don't want to go." I think it's perfect, to be honest, because it works on so many levels. It's David saying goodbye for the first time,
Yeah. And I
and
mean, I think it'll be hopefully improved even more so by the fact that he's come back now,
yeah.
and that we can hopefully get some resolution there of him being happy to go
Hmm.
the next time round. Which, yeah. I mean, same with Donna, really, because I feel like this story, along with how she was left in Journey's End, it didn't sit quite right with me. But now knowing that we're going to have a chance to go back to that and give her a new ending, I think hopefully that improves things as well and leaves her in a better place. But we
Yeah.
shall see. But yeah, I mean, also with this Doctor, I think there's a complaint with the new series about the whole idea of the prophecy regeneration. The idea that they are going to die / regenerate at some point.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is the first time it's happened, really, isn't it, with the 10th Doctor?
Hmm.
But the reason it works so well is because, like you say, he is the vanity Doctor. He's the one who doesn't want to go. So him knowing that is coming forces him to change how he acts. Like you see him in going down a darker path in the Waters of Mars in particular, and you've got that line of 3 knocks is all you're getting. He is on borrowed time at that point, essentially, and you can see that has impacted him as a character.
I think he's at his most vulnerable.
Mm.
I think that's what makes him dangerous, because he's vulnerable,
Yeah,
and you're pushing him, and he's really like kicking and screaming about it, and that's great.
Yeah, I think you've also got to remember at this point as well, he's already regenerated once.
Yeah,
like he's had that near miss already, but he's got to keep this face now. So
another example of vanity. He doesn't want to change his face; he likes it.
Yeah, that probably does have an impact on how he sees his face in that sort of like post Journey's End Tennant stuff. But yeah, and it's also funny thinking about how this Doctor is probably one of the shortest lived Doctors still. Like in terms of the in-universe time he's been around. Because he does pretty much age along with the audience, I think. Whereas Matt Smith, he gets to kick about for 1,000 years, the 11th Doctor.
Yeah, well, even more, I think.
Yeah, I think it's 1,100, isn't it, in the end?
Yeah.
Or something like that. Because, yeah, Moffat certainly played a bit more loose with time compared to Russell. I mean, how do you feel about those two approaches? Which do you prefer? Or would you prefer something more in the middle?
I think probably in the middle.
Yeah. I think when the Doctor has a specific age, it doesn't really help the rest of continuity, does it?
No, because Time in the Run, you've got the 7th Doctor saying he's like 900, then whatever, in like Voyage of a Dam, like 903, and you're like, oh.
Especially with a time war in the middle as well. It feels like it's just easier to say, the Doctor's lost track after all this time, which when you're traveling in a time machine, you would sort of imagine that to be the case. I feel like giving an exact age feels a bit silly.
In the nicest possible way, I don't really think we should care as fans.
No, I think it is just a little neckbeards discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's the same as the Doctor being half human, really, isn't it?
Yeah, you can brush it aside.
Yeah, it only matters for the story that it is included in. The Doctor's age in this, for the sake of it, we'll accept that he's 903 or whatever years old while watching the Tennant era, but then we'll throw it out of our minds when we watch Classic Who or Moffat Who or whatever.
I think with Moffat, he uses the Doctor's age as emotional weight, especially in like Heaven Sent. When he's been stuck in the confession jar for like 4 billion years, like it was that gut punch, but that's all it's there for.
I think, yeah, the problem is when it gets to how Moffat uses it, it's impossible for us as humans to comprehend the idea of like the 200-year skip,
Hmm.
because none of us are ever gonna live that long. Most of us haven't lived a fraction of that amount.
Hmm.
So it's just, yeah, it gets to the point where, so much can change so quickly for us. Like think about how we are now compared to how we were when The End of Time came out. 15
Yeah.
years have passed. You think in some ways that's all you need, like a few years difference can make a lot in terms of how people change. But yeah, we're jumping ahead a bit there.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Deep.
a topic to discuss when we get to some Moffat era
Yeah.
episodes.
Time of the Doctor for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean that takes place over 900 years, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway, End of Time. Let's talk some trivia on this because it's one of only two New Who stories which are split into two parts in the title. Obviously, there's a lot more two-parters, but when it comes to the title, having it be part one and part two, this is one of two. The other being Spyfall, of course, and both of those have an episode which went out on New Year's Day. Which, I mean, I have a theory about that. I sort of feel like maybe it's because you want to make sure that people know to tune in for the next episode, and that it's not just a one-off special.
Yeah.
Like with Spyfall, it needs to also be a premiere for a series. If you say this is part one, people know to come back again to check out part two, and not that it's just a one-off and they're done with it. Perhaps similar here, in that people are used to a Christmas Day special. You want to make sure they know to come back next week on New Year's Day for the second half of it. But I think a lot of it was down to Russell just wanting it to be a bit more of an epic feel to it, an epic conclusion, because he did have a title for part one. I think The Final Days of Planet Earth was what it would have been called at one point, but yeah, instead it just became The End of Time part one and part two, which first time since Survival as well.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. What trivia have you got for us?
The David Tennant was a dummy for a bit of this story, not on Auton, but in part two, when he's being rescued by the God Bless the Cactus people. That's a dummy of David Tennant, because I think he had an operation or an injury sustained on his back. I think when he was filming Hamlet, he had like an injury there, or like the classic Doctor injury of the knee being sort of being operated on or something like that. So there was a mannequin made of David Tennant, which is terrifying.
I mean, certainly you don't want your body shaking around like that dummy did as it went down the stairs. So I can see why they'd have done that anyway, even if perhaps he didn't have the injury. That might not have been the most fun for David to do. Fun for us to watch, though, at least.
Oh, yeah, it's a great rescue.
Yeah. Worst rescue ever.
Oh, it's iconic.
But yeah, do you think they threw a dummy out of the spaceship as well? Or are you going to tell me there wasn't a real spaceship?
No,
through the skylight.
That was actual David Tennant.
They threw the real David Tennant out of a spaceship.
Yeah, the insurance could just about cover it,
Yeah. Maybe that's how he got his injury. They filmed it out of order.
Hey, that's the beauty of television.
There you go. Speaking of things being out of order, David Tennant is the first Doctor during his era, to not record his Regeneration story last. Because he also did the Sarah Jane Adventures story, The Wedding of Sarah Jane Smith, after this. That was the last thing he recorded as the Doctor during his time as the Doctor, not counting returns for anniversary specials and stuff. Rassilon in this story was actually never referred to Rassilon in the credits either. And I think you said on the figures as well, didn't you?
Yeah, the figure is called the Narrator, which I guess Rassilon is the narrator figure, especially in part one.
It's sort of like the big reveal at the end that the narrator is actually a character in the story as well, isn't it? And then you get that cliffhanger of Gallifrey returning. Yeah, he was credited as narrator in part 1 and then as Lord President in part 2. So it's only within the story itself when the Doctor calls him Rassilon that it is the Rassilon of legend. Yeah, which it's funny, isn't it? Because you don't really think about that sort of thing. You just see Timothy Dalton and you think Rassilon.
Yeah, because we've got that knowledge, that hindsight.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, it would have been a bit of a shock. And I mean, for me at the time, I wouldn't have even really known much about Rassilon. I wasn't that big on Time Lord lore. I mean, I would have seen Five Doctors, so I would have known him from that. But I don't know if I'd have connected the dots as much. Another Time Lord in this, only credited as the woman. That led to quite a bit of theorizing, didn't it?
Yeah, whether it's the Doctor's mom. I guess it's like the Hell Bent thing, isn't it? That woman.
It's like everyone accepts that it's the Doctor's mum, but not quite officially, if that makes
Yeah.
like an unofficial secret, I guess. It's like it's meant to be ambiguous, but we all sort of agree that it's probably the Doctor's mum.
And then you've got the Weeping Angel theory as well.
Oh yeah, because you do have that line about they'll hide their faces in shame like the weeping of angels of old. It's one of those things Russell always did very well, isn't it? Like adding to the lore with those little lines, like the Nightmare Child and stuff like that. Just those short little tantalizing teases that fire the imagination.
Yeah, which is way more exciting in your head than what any story could do it justice.
Yeah, that's very true. Also, we've got a reference to a future story, The Day of the Doctor.
Oh, yeah.
Well, a couple of references, actually.
We've covered it already. So check out our review for Day of the Doctor.
Yeah, we did. We've done some time traveling, bit about out of order here because that's of course the War Doctor's Regeneration story, so we were able to slot that onto this list. But yeah, you've got the discussion of Queen Elizabeth, who is no longer the, and also reference to the moment, or the first mention of the moment, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is where Moffat would have returned to. I mean, again, that's quite a cool line, really, isn't it? Just something called the moment that could wipe out all Time Lords and Daleks, really. And I mean, sort of spoilers for where we're going in this review, but I think this does handle the Time War particularly well.
Yeah,
perhaps better than Day of the Doctor does. But I think in terms of visual awe, Day of the Doctor has that for the Time War. But in terms of out there concepts, that the Time War would be, this story gets that better.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you do. You have that nice reference to how we're on the edge of the Time War here. At the heart of it, people are dying and, being reborn again just to die again.
Yeah, which I like.
That's great stuff like that. Yeah. Also, the BBC got some complaints from this story at the very end because the Doctor's, the 11th Doctor, after regenerating, made reference to the fact that he's still not ginger, which led to some gingers writing into the BBC.
Now you're just assuming they're ginger.
In anger. Who else would it be?
Oh, fair point.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a brunette, you're going to write into the BBC angry on Ginger's behalf.
Well, you're probably like,
perhaps.
I'm not blonde and I'm not the Doctor's type.
No, there you go. That might be it. But yeah, certainly the BBC had to clarify that they meant no offence to any gingers.
All but free.
Yeah, they said, look, we've got Catherine Tate here, and we've got
Karen
Gillan coming up, so we love gingers.
That's a new Big Finish tagline.
Oh dear. Anyway, before we get any complaints written in, shall we discuss the story itself, give a synopsis? I think, are you doing part 1 this time?
Yes, I'll do part 1. Part 1. So we start off with this narration by Rassilon himself. He's a big fan of Burnish Ribbons, following Wilf must be doing his Christmas shopping when he stumbles into a church with this woman, and it begins this sort of the beginning of sort of a character journey for Wilf. We expand a lot on Wilf in this story.
I mean, he's the de facto companion, isn't he?
Yeah, he is the companion role. So after this sort of spooky conversation, he notices something in the church window, and it is a stained glass TARDIS. And we begin the adventure as these bad dreams have been happening across everyone on planet Earth.
But he's the only one who can remember.
Yeah, which is the scary thing. So the Doctor is summoned by Ood Sigma after the 10th Doctor just sort of not really answering Destiny. And this is when Destiny finally catches up with him as the Elder Ood has a prophecy of the end of time as they all join a circle, and we see the Master is there and the players what are involved within this story. So is it Joshua Naismith?
Yeah, it is. Played by David Harewood.
Yeah. And we get a vision of how the Master survived with the ring being picked up. So it's a nice full circle moment to the end of Last of the Time Lords. And we have this Harold Saxon cult who have locked up Lucy Saxon and now begin the resurrection of the Master. So the Doctor's like, all right, I'm out of here. The end of time's coming. I need to stop this. So the Master's resurrected, but Lucy isn't that bright, but her family is because she's got money. So they've managed to reverse engineer this potion, and boom.
Yeah, it sort of messes with his regeneration, doesn't it? And
yes.
I think it's mentioned that he's sort of not regeneration, his reincarnation.
Yeah, it feels very Eric Robertsy in a way.
Yeah. I think there's that great line, this body was born of death, all it knows how to do is die.
Yeah. Which is great. Very mastery, I think, dialogue and character within this.
Yeah, it's a very mastery situation for him to be stuck in, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's nice that the difference there between Sound of Drums, Last of the Time Lords compared to the situation he's in now, where, King of the Wasteland, he calls himself. And it's a great direction to take the character in and to sort of mirror where he was at before, where he was on top of the world, and now he's scrounging around trying his best to survive, really. And that's it for the most part. For this story, he doesn't have much of a grand plan.
No.
He's more a force of chaos, isn't he, within the story?
Yeah.
Who's taken advantage when he can. And, I mean, he's about to get a pretty big situation to take advantage of.
Yes, as we have this gateway, the Immortality Gateway by Joshua Naismith, as there's been rumblings that Harold Saxon has returned, and they might be able to use him for like a present for his daughter. Because Joshua Naismith wants his daughter to be immortal. Meanwhile, Wilf has his. Oh, go on.
Didn't he liberate the gate, as he says, from Torchwood?
Yeah, it's
I think after
Torchwood Tech, yeah.
Yeah.
Canary Wharf, yeah. So Wilf begins his little quest to find the Doctor because these bad dreams are plaguing everyone on planet Earth. So he has the Silver Cloak Gang, which is lovely, and it's just great to have Bernice Cribbins just really owning it. It's lovely. As we have the Doctor hunting down the Master in the Wastelands, and this is when sort of their paths cross after the Master has devoured some people because he's so hungry and he needs energy to sustain himself.
There's that wonderful scene where they like sense each other almost, isn't there? And then the Master starts banging on the old barrel to get his attention, and you get like that chase.
Yeah, which is all that's an interesting bit because that uses the opening music to Matt Smith's Doctor, which I think is just wrong in my head. Because I'm so used
you wouldn't have known that at the time, would you?
No, but because I'm so used to hearing it in like Matt Smith going, "Oh, still got legs," You know, it just feels a bit wrong. I don't know.
Mm.
That's just my little head.
Yeah, I see that. That's what. Was that the first time it's used then? So it's just a piece specifically for
Yeah,
the End of Time. Yeah, I mean, the
yeah.
End of Time has some brilliant music.
Oh, absolutely. It's like
I
Murray
think,
firing on all cylinders.
yeah, he really is bringing his A game. I mean, I particularly like the Clouds Pass.
Hmm.
Like this is one of the few times that after watching a Doctor Who story, I've gone and looked up the
Yeah, yeah.
soundtrack for it just to re-listen to some pieces. Yeah, great stuff throughout this.
So the Doctor reunites with Wilf and the Silver Cloak gang. Yeah, basically, the Doctor's met by a load of Doctor Who fans going, "Can we have a photo?"
Mm.
So the Silver Cloak disperse, and we get a really nice scene between Wilf and the Doctor in a cafe where the Doctor says, "I'm gonna die," and we get Donna. This is why we're at this cafe, because Donna's there, and Wilf knows that Donna's still in there fighting. There'll be moments where she looks sad and she just doesn't know why, and that's obviously the Doctor.
Yeah, there's a wonderful line at the start of that scene as well, which I'd never noticed before this watch, where while the Doctor and Wilf are walking into the cafe, he says, "We passed about 5 on the way. What's so special about this one?"
Hmm.
And ultimately, it's just brushed off at the time, but then you realise it's because Donna's going to be outside it, and it's all part of Wilf's master plan to make his granddaughter happy again. And it's always touching, isn't it? Anything
Yeah.
with Bernard Cribbins just falls on the heartstrings. Even more so now that he's sadly no longer with us.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he has that line in this scene, doesn't he, where he says, "Oh, after the Doctor says I'm gonna die," he says, "Oh, me too, one day. Don't you dare." It's a dagger
Yeah.
in my heart.
Yeah, and it hits even more when you get such a beautiful moment in part 2. I know, skipping ahead, but yeah, one of the best moments in Doctor Who, I think that. Just a nice little small moment, that is.
Hmm. Yeah, this story really does get the quiet moments so well.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's got some great actors to pull them off as well.
So the Doctor, this is when the Doctor re-sees the Master, revisits the Master, and energy's firing, and this is when the Doctor can hear the Master's madness, the drumming,
Hmm.
and
And the Master gets some vindication here, doesn't it? Because he realizes
it's real.
It's real. Yeah.
yeah, it's real. Um, but that's all short-lived as he is taken away by Joseph Naismith's guards, security, little armed forces,
His
and
own private army, I think Will said he's got.
yeah, it's weird because you can see how wrecked Tennant's suit is in that. It's all ripped.
I mean, he got shot, didn't he?
Well, yeah, but it's mental that. Yeah, it's a detail I just picked up on watching it this time, but it's a wreck. This suit's wrecked. And I think this is when we get a nice little Christmas Day thing where Donna has gifted Wilf Joshua's Naismith. That's a bit of a mouthful. Naismith's book.
I thought you were going to say the Master tucking into the turkey. I thought it's an interesting way to describe it as a nice Christmas day.
I mean, it's a festive feast.
Yeah, it's certainly.
So Donna's
chips and gravy and turkey. Oh, lots of lovely food.
it feels very 11-y, like Big Finish villain. Yeah, which is great.
I thought you were going to say just like the opening of 11th.
Yeah, true. True, actually.
Just chucks the turkey out the front of the Naismith mansion and stay out.
Yeah, so before we sort of stay out of the mansion, we have to get the Doctor and Wilf in the mansion because Wilf is facing the wrath of Sylvia, which is a nice little moment when they're like, "What are you doing here? Merry Christmas." I like that. Was a nice little bit fun moment.
Yeah.
Wilf's entrance to the TARDIS is great. Before it be cleaner.
You're not leaving me with her, are you?
Good, fair point. Off they go. It's lovely.
Are you shouting at thin air? It's so bloody good.
It really is. It feels very sitcom-y and it just works so brilliant. So we arrive at the mansion. The Doctor puts the TARDIS on a cloak so the Master can't discover it. And
I
this
suppose
is,
it's the same thing he does in Impossible Astronaut, isn't it?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, really. Um, and then we have these two scientists checking the gate, but they go down to sort of a basement area where they encounter the Doctor and Wilf because they're under a shimmer and they're Vinvoci.
Yeah, that's it.
Vinvoci, yeah.
Completely different from. Is it Voci that Manicafiata
Yeah.
was?
Which
Yeah.
I love about Russell because you've got Grosk and Grask. You
Hmm.
know, it's such a lovely,
Absorbaloff and Slovene.
yeah, it's a nice sort of pairing of things we've already seen in the show.
Hmm. He does such a good job of building out a universe there, didn't he?
Hmm.
Building out a world without having to rely on always the same characters.
So the Doctor notices that the Master has sort of tampered with the gate, and
Hmm.
the Master enters the gate, and it's too late as the Doctor arrives. As he locks, it's quite a nice little bit of sort of foreshadowing that you get Wilf and Doctor in the sort of radioactive nuclear thing, trying to protect Wilf
Hmm.
from not changing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that is what ends up saving him from changing, isn't it?
Yeah.
When he locks him in there for his safekeeping. And yeah, obviously that comes back around again towards the end of the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that nice line before that when you get the reveal that, the Immortality Gate doesn't just mend one person at a time, it mends whole planets.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then that's when it clicks with the Doctor what the Master's up to.
And the Master Race is born as
Mm.
everybody on Earth transforms, even the dead, which I think is quite a horrifying thing.
Yeah, it's a solemn moment in part two, isn't it? Where Wilf asks, do you think he changed them in their graves as well while he's thinking about his wife being buried down there?
Yeah.
And then the Doctor can't quite say yes, but he's just like, I'm sorry. Brilliant.
Hmm. And this is when we have the grand. If that's not a big cliffhanger enough, we have the reveal of the Time Lords are back. The last thing Russell needed to do to make his era come full circle. He destroyed them. Now he's bringing them back.
Mm.
And that is the end of part one.
Yeah, and it's such a strong ending as well, isn't it? Because you build up to that Master reveal. You're having such fun seeing John Sim everywhere as loads of different characters. But then it's not quite over yet. It's sort of fading out. You go back to some narration, and then suddenly this narrator was a Time Lord all along. And, the granddaddy of all Time Lords, Rassilon. Brilliant stuff so far. And I think it continues to be brilliant in part two. As we open back on Gallifrey, don't we? Back during the last day of the Time War, we get that update that the Doctor has taken the moment from the Vault and intends to use it to wipe out Time Lords and Daleks alike, ending the Time War. One of the Time Lords dares to say, "Oh, maybe this is a good thing." Rassilon's like, "Fuck off! I will not die," and she is obliterated. And yeah, he is very much looking for a way out, a way to escape the final day of the Time War, and realizes that there's like a seer, isn't there, prophesizing what's to come, and he works out that two children of Gallifrey survive beyond the final day, and are soon to clash on Earth for one final time, and Rassilon realizes he can use this as a way out because he can send the heartbeat of the Time Lords, the drum beat that the Master hears. He sends that back through time into the Master's head while he was looking into the untempered schism. And then that's what is with him now. And, with that, it's non-physical, but it is a connection between them in the Time War and the Doctor and the Master in the present. It is a way out for Gallifrey. And I think there's something wonderful about that as a concept, isn't there? The idea of things happening in the past and present concurrently. And it sort of explains why the drum beat was never mentioned before. Because it sort of seemed like a Russell retcon when it first popped up in Sound of Drums. But no, you instead now have that it is from the Time War in origin. And so you can sort of explain it away not being in Classic Who because Time War obviously hadn't happened yet, so it's just like a later layering upon the timeline, isn't it? I suppose. Yeah, that's a nice little setup for things to come. And Meanwhile, the Master has now taken over everyone on Earth. He's sort of repeating what he did last time, isn't he, really? But in a bit more of an accelerated state and having a bit more of a laugh with it.
Yes.
As he's getting all his troops and all his NATO forces ready to go to war on the universe. They've got all their missiles. They're all ready to strike out across the stars. He's sort of gloating to the Doctor, and there's another wonderful little quiet scene where the Doctor's saying, you don't have to see the universe, just own it. It would be my honor to travel with you.
It's very Delgado and Pertwee.
Yeah, it calls back to like specifically that scene from Colony in Space when they have the Doomsday weapon. It feels like a nice little mirroring of that piece, where that what currently seems like the end of their battles. We know that, I mean, even on this very list, John Sim's Master will be coming back in a few days' time, and then we've got Dewan's Master for the final day on the power of the Doctor. But yeah, meanwhile, you've got all this going on. You've also got Wilf strapped down, and then Wilf's phone starts to ring, and the Master is a bit bothered by this because he's everyone on Earth, and he's not phoning him. So who is? It is, of course, Donna, because of the meta crisis. She has not transformed, but obviously she is completely lost as to what's happening here. Everyone's turned into the former Prime Minister. And, she's not coping too well with that, but the Master sends some other Masters to hunt her down, but there's like a little defense mechanism within her head, isn't there? A little burst of regeneration energy knocks them all out cold. That's pretty much it for Donna in this story, really, isn't it? Did you get your hopes up at the time when you first watching this, thinking, oh, could we be leading to Donna getting her memories back?
No, not really. And I think it's raised more questions now. We know that she's coming back.
Yeah, I think it works out better this way, having it more being focused on the Doctor and Wilf.
Yeah, which I prefer.
Yeah, certainly as it stood at the time, it does feel like Donna's sort of wasting this story. It feels like she's only there because she has to be, because of Wilf and such. She does get a nice ending at the end, though, with the wedding. But yeah, nevertheless, I think, again, we're sort of being improved with hindsight by what's to come. That we know we are getting a second chance to continue with Donna now. But yes, anyway, back to the end of time, part 2. The cacti come to the rescue. That's racist, apparently, though. But yeah, so worst rescue ever happens. Dummy Tennant gets knocked down some stairs. They free him, and then they teleport over to their ship as the Master arrives. The Master shoots up all the controls so that they can't teleport back. The Doctor messes up all the controls on the spaceship so that they're drifting and can't be tracked. The Vinvoci both wanted to leave, didn't they? But, the Doctor's got to stay. He's got to find a way to save the Earth. And so now they are left adrift in space. And, it's wonderful seeing Wilf's reaction to being in space, seeing the Earth below. And along with that, just seeing those wonderful scenes where they're talking to each other, where the Master's trying to, Wilf's trying to convince the Doctor to kill the Master before the Master kills him. And, he gives him that gun, or tries to give him that gun. Meanwhile, back in the Time War, they realise that they need something physical to link them to the Master and Doctor in the present. So Rassilon throws, what's it? It's like something
white
star,
dwarf star, point
yeah,
star.
the white point star. That's it, isn't it? From his cane, a crystal only found on Gallifrey, isn't it? He throws that down to Earth. The Master realizes, or actually before this, the Master realized that with all of the drumming now being in everyone in Earth's heads, he could project that across the stars, couldn't he?
And amplify and find the source.
Yeah, find the source, which is how the Time Lords then use that pathway to get the white point star down to Earth. It's like sending a message back, and the Master gets this and then realizes what's going on, what he has to do, and so he sends out an open broadcast hoping to find the Doctor to tell him about Gallifrey returning. And after the Doctor refuses to take Wilf's gun from him, he hears this news and he grabs it straight away because this shows that things are getting serious. And, Wilf's saying, oh, this is good news, isn't it? You love your people. We can have a party. But the Doctor reveals that, that's the way he chooses to remember them, because during the end of the Time War, they fell so far, became even worse than the Daleks. They are, worse than anything it's ever faced, which again sort of conflicts with how things end up in Day of the Doctor, really. Try not to let my view of one story colour how I see the other. But yeah, you do sort of have a bit of dissonance there, don't you, between how the Doctor sees the Time Lords in those stories.
Yes, yeah.
I suppose it's ultimately just down to how Moffat sees the Doctor and the Time Lords versus how Russell sees them both. But yeah, it sets up the Time Lords as this huge threat for the 10th Doctor's last hurrah. And what a hurrah it's about to be. We have a great action scene as the Doctor's diving down back to Earth in the ship. You get some Star Wars references, don't you, as Wilf and one of the Vinvoxia in the cannons shooting down those missiles. And then finally arrive at the Naismith mansion, dive out and through the skylight, landing right in between the Master and Rassilon, because Rassilon is now heading up a bridgehead. They had a vote back on Gallifrey as to whether or not they will survive or die. Only 2 voted against, one of which was who we presume is the Doctor's Muller, and they sort of stand as witness, like the Weeping Angels of old, as the line went, and they join Rassilon on the Vanguard to Earth as the Master and Doctor confront the Time Lords. You're almost disappointed that no one said nice of you to drop in.
Oh. Okay, that's good.
But then, the Doctor's basically caught between, does he shoot Rassilon or does he shoot the Master? Actually, before this, we had Rassilon undoing the Master's work, and the Master also had another plan, like taking every opportunity that he can to reset the Immortality Gates template to Time Lord so that he could become every Time Lord instead. But, just to show the pure presence of Rassilon, he just opens his hand, raises his eyebrows, and that's it. The Master's plan is in ruins. And I love the mentality of this story with, the Doctor and the Master being like the black sheep of Gallifreyan society, really. And yet Rassilon very much looks down on them, but he's like, of course, they'd be the only 2 that actually survive beyond the last day. And in the end, Wilf's also come in at this point, rescued someone from that, what's it called? That little radiation chamber. So he's now locked in there to watch on as the Doctor is caught between the Time Lords and the Master. Gallifrey is showing up in the sky. The world's shaking a bit from the gravitational anomaly. It's all going a bit mad. You get a nice scene of Sylvia going, "Please, Doctor," don't you? Or something along those lines. She's very much hoping that, him and Wilf will be able to stop this and save the day. And so the Doctor is caught with a decision to make. Will he shoot Rassilon? Will he shoot the Master? But instead he shoots the machine that sort of has the white point star in, the machine that's connecting Gallifrey to the present, and sends them back into hell, as he says, back into the final day of the Time War. Rassilon tries to take the Doctor down with him, but the Master steps in and zaps Rassilon and gets sucked back into hell along with them. And, the 10th Doctor's like, I survived. I love it when I do that. But no, he didn't, because knock, 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 knock. It's Wilf on the glass. He wants to be let out. But the chamber's about to flood with radiation, sadly. And so after a little bit of a hissy fit, the Doctor finally goes in. And I think people sort of misinterpret this scene a bit, don't they?
Yes.
They sort of, when he's calling Wilf nothing, that's not really what he thinks. And you see what he really thinks at the very end, where he says, "It would be my honor." And they built up this great friendship between the 2 anyway. And so, when all's said and done, he sacrifices himself for him. It's not an instant regeneration. The radiation takes time to work its way through. And so he gets enough time to go back, look back on all his old friends, old companions. I mean, we have it revealed in Death of the Doctor that he went back and looked back at all of them, not just the ones his temp face saw, but all of them. And you got that nice scene at Donna's wedding where she's married now, and he went and borrowed a couple of quid off. What's Donna's dad's name?
I can't remember.
Jeffrey Noble, isn't it? Jeffrey.
Yeah,
That's it. And just the way that puts a lump in Sylvia's throat, it's the way it's made so much more meaningful. It's not he's just gone and won the lottery for Donna. He's done it as like a gift from Donna's dad as well. And it's wonderful stuff. And then you sort of have this nice thing where the Russell era comes full circle in the next scene, because the Doctor goes back and visits Rose just before, at the start of 2005. It's New Year's Day 2005 instead. And, he tells her, you're going to have a great year. Because that's where she runs into the Ninth Doctor, of course. And I think it works wonderfully in that it makes you want to go back and rewatch Rose. Or at least that's how it made me feel in a way. It's that nice full circle of this era before the 10th Doctor then goes into the TARDIS, says he doesn't want to go, and then regenerates into the 11th. We have the first regeneration that blows up the TARDIS interior. Yes. It's a bit of a violent one. And now the TARDIS is crashing. The Doctor's still not ginger. And that is it. Next up is the 11th hour. But first, let's share our thoughts on the end of time. I mean, we've been pretty positive, haven't we?
Yes.
How do you feel about it?
Do you know, I think I've really grown to love this story.
Same here.
Because I think it's not a story I've watched, like, loads. So it still feels like new Doctor Who in a way. Like, it's just great rediscovering it again. And it just, like we say, the quiet moments are what make it. I think part 2 is my favourite half of the story, maybe because that's where all the action is, and I just love the whole spaceship sequence. But everything about it I just love. I found myself getting quite teared up in parts.
Same here.
Like, I don't get emotional about TV, but there's something about this where it was just pulling on every heartstring I had.
I think, I'll be honest, on this rewatch, I enjoyed End of Time more than I enjoyed Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways. I mean, hot take, heresy there. But I do feel like that's probably still the better story. But this is just the one I enjoyed watching more this time around.
Yes.
I mean, maybe it is partly, like you say, it's a story we don't revisit as often.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have as much familiarity with it for us. So it is a bit fresher. But nevertheless, I think, it is Russell going more bombastic, more full on. It is more epic. It is just that much more enjoyable for me.
It's perfect telly for New Year's Day. It's a romp.
Yeah, it really is. It's wonderful build up in part 1 as well.
Yeah.
And then all hell breaks loose in part 2. I mean, how do you feel about the ending stuff where, because I feel like that's one of the big complaints, is that the story has about 20 minutes on the end of it that's just wanking off the Russell T Davies era as they see it.
It is like 10 minutes of the Doctor visits this person now, and I like it because it's closure for Russell and us as the audience member to this iteration of the show for now.
Yeah.
Like, I have no problem with it whatsoever. I think that it's quite sweet. And, it can only be done once, and it's been done now. So, yeah, I'm fine with it, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, my only problem with it would probably be the Martha and Mickey pairing up.
Yeah.
The way that sort of feels a bit sloppily handled, really.
Yeah.
It's just like two characters who have hardly interacted. It's just like, we need to get through this a bit quicker. Let's pair them up together and move on. And it feels like a disservice to both characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the same, I don't know how else you could have handled it necessarily, but yeah, it does feel a bit of an odd way to wrap up those two arcs, really. Uh, but yeah, I mean, yesterday, or not yesterday, sorry, 2 days ago now, we spoke about the Davies Ex Machina, the
Yeah, yeah.
miraculous conclusion of him writing himself into a corner. I don't think this one really has that.
No.
It feels well set up before this point. It's a simple solution, breaking that connection. But it works perfectly. It doesn't feel like
Everything just snaps back.
ourselves. Yeah. It doesn't feel like we've written ourselves into a corner the same way that Russell did in Journey's End and Stolen Earth. And I suppose maybe it's because he had more time to write this one as well.
Yeah, and I guess he probably put more to it. Because this is his last one.
He didn't have a whole series to worry about as well. It was just the specials for this year. I mean, certainly that would have come with its own challenges, but it might have lightened the workload enough for him to really put 110% into this script. And I think it shows.
Yeah, it really does.
I mean, just so many wonderful moments. How do you feel about the Master in this story?
I've grown to like what they do. There are elements I don't like about it. Like the insanity, but I think that was Russell's vision, because I think the best John Sim is with Capaldi. But
I agree.
But I think that everything what's done with the Master in terms of like him fighting for survival and, like we say, a body born of death, it feels very Master, very sort of decayed Master, very Eric Roberts. It just feels very in keeping to what the Master's character is, like the nature of survival for him.
It's just the leaping about that feels like maybe a step too far.
And the CGI hasn't aged well for it.
No. Yeah, it is a bit odd. In some ways, I don't mind the skeleton head.
I like that.
It does feel like a bit of a callback to the Chris Pratt Master, particularly. Yeah, with like the bulgy eyes. But yeah, certainly the leaping around feels a bit too goofy. You do wonder where the thought process was behind that. Because it doesn't really add anything particularly, does it?
I guess it's just another scare factor and a bit of trailer bait.
Yeah. And I suppose maybe like opposite of scare factor, it sort of cartoonizes the violence a bit.
Yeah.
Because that is quite a horrific scene when those two run up to the burger van and just see the skeletons steaming in there. So I suppose maybe it adds a bit of levity to that when it's not as human. There's sort of like that disconnect, isn't there? This isn't something you could necessarily see in the real world. Hopefully no former prime ministers start doing that anytime soon.
Yeah, and you've got Barack Obama in there as well.
Oh yeah, you do, don't you?
In little bits like recession. That. Yeah.
It's funny how they handle that as well.
Yeah, it's tastefully done.
You can imagine quite a few people at the time, sort of on the younger side, thinking, "Oh my god, they got Barack Obama to do Doctor Who."
Yeah. Continuing that sort of theme, we have the Naismiths, which I'm gonna be honest, they aren't that big of a thing. They get brushed aside pretty quick. Which I guess is the Master racing.
Yeah, so like with the Master taking over everyone, you sort of don't really have room for any other human characters besides Wilf, because he's protected from it. And it would sort of take away from the impact of the Master taking over everyone if you kept the Naismiths there. But for me, I sort of feel like, at this point in the Russell T Davies era, you've had similar characters before this. And so it feels like you've got a shorthand there with them.
Yeah.
And so same with the cactus people, the Vinvoci.
Yeah.
The way that they have those little scenes where they like sneak off, it sort of feels like a callback to Doomsday, where you had the two lovers who snuck off there and ended up being converted to Cybermen.
Yeah.
But you've got little bits like that just feel like you've got this shorthand now of this era, that that these are almost callbacks of sorts to what's come before, so you don't necessarily need it fully delved into. But yeah, at the same time, they do feel, the Naismiths in particular stand out a little bit, don't they? As sort of, they don't feel quite right. You've also got like their chief henchman is Danes, isn't he?
Yeah.
I swear Russell then went on to use that name in Miracle Day, didn't he? I swear there was a Dane. Was it Oswald Danes there?
Yeah, the baddie, I want to say. Yeah, Miracle Day, yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose, it does. The Naismiths do sort of have almost a Miracle Day feel to them, don't they? With the Immortality Gate.
Yeah.
Sort of copying a similar storyline that would go on there. But yeah, nevertheless, I think they are probably the weakest part of the story. But I can't really say I'm that bothered by them either way. I don't think they detract anything from it.
I forget they're in it.
Yeah, that's true. It does almost feel like a waste of David Harewood.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't think it's any great loss either way, really. They're a means to end. I think what makes it weirder is the fact that they are talked about as one of the main players. They are mentioned in the narration. They are mentioned by the Ood. And they are a key part of the story in that sense, but not as characters, more just as plot devices. Yeah. You try to get something interesting there with Joshua himself wanting things more for his daughter, which is an interesting new dynamic to play with. But like we say, they don't get to play with it too much anyway. But yeah, what about the cactus people? How do you feel about the Vinvoci?
I love them. I was a big fan of Balakatalata, so it was great to have those return. Well, a different species of them.
A cousin species, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, like I said earlier, it's nice to have that sort of interworld connection. So it all feels like one universe.
Yeah. They're also just fun characters, aren't they? They play off both each other and the Doctor particularly well.
Yeah. It is great. Especially in the dogfight scene when you just get the lady cactus person just running up and down, being swayed. And it's a lot of fun. The dogfight scene in particular is just a moment that I think is probably up there in my top 3 moments of the story.
It's an obvious reference to Star Wars, isn't it? But
yeah,
it's so fun seeing Wilf get to sit down
the old shoulder,
shoot the missile. Yeah. I think it really tickles you seeing him have a good time in that little pod shooting at the missiles. And it's just a nice little bit of ramping up the excitement before that final showdown.
It's really the last bit of action of the story for the 10th Doctor, I would say. It's like the last sort of action hero moment for the character.
Yeah, and he gets a lot of those throughout his era, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And so, him at the wheel of this spaceship, it feels right for that to be right at the end with his send-off.
Almost mirroring like Voyage of the Damned,
Yeah, I was thinking that actually. It does have a similar feel to it, doesn't it?
But I love how the scene sort of plays with expectation that the Doctor's just got to crash the spaceship into the Naismith mansion. So you've got Will saying, "If I know you're gonna die, sir, but is this it?
Yeah. Do I have to go along with you?
Yeah. Can I just jump out the window? But I think it's great, really lovely stuff.
It gets the adrenaline going, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's similar to what Pertwee got, really, isn't it? Where he had his chase scenes in Planet of the Spiders.
Yeah.
It's sort of that feel where it's not necessary per se to the story, but it's a great addition nevertheless. Yeah. And then finally, after all that, we get the final confrontation. I mean, what do you make of the final confrontation as well? Like, Timothy Dalton as Rassilon. Brilliant casting, isn't he?
Dribble everywhere. Spit is everywhere. Spit is flying.
He's definitely chewing on those lines. But
you need an actor of that caliber to play Rassilon. Yeah. And I think that he's just the best Rassilon.
Yeah. I think it's also not just caliber of actor as well. It is that star name that I think lends a certain gravity to the end of time, doesn't it?
Yes. And I think, you've got David Tennant, Bernard Cribbins, and there is a lot of one-upmanship, I think, within this story between those two, especially when you've got, I'd be proud if you were my dad. It's so many lovely, sweet moments between those two. It just cements why Tennant's a national treasure for me.
Yeah. I think it's a great story for Bernard Cribbins as well, isn't it? The way he came along in Doctor Who, because he did have his film with Peter Cushing way back in the 60s, and then coming back for just a small part as, I think, was he called like Mott or something originally? I mean, obviously he's Wilfred Mott in the end, but he wasn't called Wilf in that first story, was he?
Yeah.
He was just meant to be a one-off character in Voyage of the Damned, but then sadly, due to the passing of the actor who played Donna's dad, they had a role open, so they brought Bernard back and morphed him into Donna's granddad. And then from there, he gets to be a side character in Series 4 and then a major player in the 10th Doctor's final story, and gets to go for one more hurrah in 2023 for the 60th as well. I mean, great stuff, and Bernard Cribbins really deserved it.
Yeah, and I think that it shows that he's not just a comedy actor, he can do the heavy stuff.
Yeah, you really can. I mean, when it comes to, top 5 tier 4 moments in Doctor Who, he's got to be responsible for at least 3 of them, hasn't he?
Oh yeah,
100%.
100%. And he's just a cultural icon, because like, even if you've not seen End of Time, you'll just see the old man crying gif of him at the end of time.
Yeah,
the wedding. Like there's a cultural impact with Wilf beyond Doctor Who.
You almost forget
he's meme culture. He is meme culture.
Yeah, like, there are people who will use that image who have never even heard of, Wilfred Mott and the End of Time and such. So they won't even know it's from Doctor Who, but it's just iconic stuff, isn't it?
Yes.
And I suppose that probably would have been around maybe the start of GIFs being more popularly used. I don't know, we're going into internet history now that I'm not too much of an expert on, but certainly memes themselves weren't quite going around until around that time or a little bit after. Because, the internet as we know it is over twice as old now compared to how it was when this came out, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, going to like meme culture, I think that Tennant I Don't Want to Go is a bit of internet history.
Yeah, that's true. I think you have a lot of people who will quote that being like, oh, this broke me. And such. And I mean, so I feel like by that point, it did get me. I think, it's taken me a while to come round on this, but as I've come round on Tennant a lot more in recent years, it does get me a lot more now. I'm no longer sitting there going, "Oh, you whiny baby, just get on with it." I'm along with him saying, "I want you to stay too."
I think that's the thing. Like, as a kid, you're excited about Matt, and that's great. That's lovely. Whereas now, because you remember, it's wrong to say how good Doctor Who was, but you just remember how lucky you were as a kid to grow up with this era, and
having it every year as well, having 13 episodes each year until 2009, where you did have the specials, but nevertheless, we were eating very good. And ultimately, a lot of it has come down to, changes in the TV industry. It's just not practical to make that many episodes a year anymore.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, it really was great. And the fact that it was consistent as well, you had like that yearly schedule of you were going to get Doctor Who sometime in the spring. Oh, so good.
It is brilliant, but then you think that if you've got that reaction to the regeneration, you know that he's left at the right time.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, I mean, well, we could talk about it a bit more tomorrow, but certainly there was the possibility of him staying on for one last year. Yes. But now we're getting him back for 3 last specials. So
I wouldn't say last specials. I think he'll be back.
Oh yeah, that's true. You never know.
This isn't the last David Tennant Doctor Who. We'll get more.
Yeah, never say never. And certainly, big finish. I've got to keep bleeding him until he's dry.
And I'm here for it because I want my childhood. So let's go for it.
Yeah. Shall we go for ranking this episode now, or these episodes?
Yeah, let's.
Yeah. I might be a bit controversial here.
I think I might be the same.
Oh, I'm going for a 9.
I will agree.
Oh, wow.
I was thinking a 9.
You held it, You held it there for a second, didn't you? Like, was he going to go for an 8?
I was going for...
joining me.
I think part 8... no, not part 8. Part 1's like an 8 out of 10. But I think just to do a part 2. It's got some of my favourite moments of Doctor Who in.
I've said that the whole thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think I do prefer part 2,
Yeah,
but I think part 1 is very strong as well. I'd go part 1 9 as well for me.
but yeah,
Mm.
it's real good stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, the real good stuff will continue tomorrow as well with 11th hour.
Will it though?
Well, oh, will it?
Mm,
Could we throw a spanner in the works here?
yeah.
You never know. I mean, certainly, yeah, we've surprised you today with our end of time review, I imagine. So I feel like, yeah, it's only not the most popular story, is it?
No, it doesn't deserve the hate. I think people should reevaluate it with the mindset of, obviously, Russell's coming back. 10th Doctor's arc of being Vanity Doctor. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
And Bernard Cribbins.
And I mean, certainly with, the 60th anniversary specials around the corner, it is the right time to revisit End of Time, isn't it?
Yeah, to see where these characters left off. Like, I forgot that Donna's surname changed to Temple Noble.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I imagine that'll be carried forward.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, probably.
Unless there's some weird timey-wimey stuff going on there. We'll see. I mean, I think we've got Sean Temple back, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, there's that brilliant line, isn't there, about what's she going to be called? Noble Temple? Sounds like a tourist attraction.
Father Pompey?
Yeah. It's like, Donna wouldn't have settled for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all to look forward to in the future. And to look forward to tomorrow is our review of the 11th hour, Matt Smith's first story.
Dun. I am the Doctor intensifies.
There we have it. But until then, make sure to leave a like if you've enjoyed hearing us ramble on, hearing us gush over the Ross D. Davis era for one last time on this Regeneration Marathon. Well, perhaps we'll do it once more when David Tennant comes back at the end of Power of the Doctor, but for now we'll try to contain ourselves for the next couple of days because we've got some Moffat era to discuss, and you're a big Moffat era fan.
Yeah, I am.
Apologist.
Yeah, I guess I am, yeah.
Yeah, so, you'll be doing some gushing there. We'll see how much gushing I'll join you in doing as the days progress. But until then, don't forget to leave a comment, share your thoughts on this story, share your thoughts on our thoughts on this story, and subscribe as well while you're down there. We'd love to have you with us on this journey.
And the future streams as well.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be many of those to come.
Oh, yes.
Alonzi, until then, take care, everyone.
I don't want to go.
Well, we've got to.
Oh.
I've done the outro now.
Oh,
We've got to go. We can't keep going.
Geronimo?
Yeah, that's the best way to end it.
Right, Geronimo.